Ok, on est back avec une autre réaction vidéo. Aujourd'hui, je réagis à une interview, puis le nom de l'interview, c'est Inside the Mind of Jeffrey Dahmer, Serial Killer. Dans le fond, ce gars-là, c'est un putain de malade mental, là. Puis yo, il a fait vraiment des choses fucking bizarres, là. Comme, il a tué plein de jeunes hommes, puis en même temps, il était homosexuel, puis il vient de sortir sa série sur Netflix. J'ai pas encore fini la série au complet, mais j'étais rendu à genre l'épisode 5. So, sans plus tarder, ça, et puis en passant, ça c'est un real footage, ce serait interview du gars en tant que tel. So, sans plus tarder, on va aller checker la vidéo live.
Sensitize myself to it. I don't know. I went to great lengths. I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them.
Right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Jeffrey Dahmer is recalling his monstrous past. Almost 2 years ago, in this little apartment in Milwaukee, police discovered the grisly remnants of one of the most horrible crime sprees in American history. Jeffrey Dahmer, an unassuming chocolate factory worker, would eventually confess that he had seduced, murdered, and dismembered 17 young men. He even ate some of his victims' body parts.
Wow, il a séduit et tué 17 jeunes hommes, man. Tout le monde qu'on monte live là, c'est toute la face des gars qu'il a tué, man. Un vrai fou de chez fou, man.
He instantly became the center of worldwide media attention, a serial killer unmasked. There were protests and press conferences in Milwaukee as people tried to understand how this could have happened in their midst. How did Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years?
Alors moi je vais vous dire live. Je vais vous dire live pourquoi ce gars-là, il a pu get away avec pendant 10 ans et 13 ans et plus là. La seule raison pourquoi là, il a pu partir de ça là et puis pas se faire attraper là, c'est à cause d'un seul mot. Non, 2 mots. White privilege. Ce gars-là, tu vois, comme il y avait des dossiers criminels parce qu'il avait fait des affaires genre d'exhibitionnistes dans des parcs, dans des fêtes foraines, tu comprends, puis tout. Mais ces cibles-là, la plupart de ces cibles, comme vers la fin de sa carrière, c'était visé sur les minorités, genre des Laotiens ou des Noirs, des Africains américains, puis tout. Puis quand on va porter plainte pour un jeune homme blanc qui a l'air comme de face, quand tu le regardes face to face, il a l'air chill, tu vas pas aller gratter plus loin. En tout cas, les policiers dans ce temps-là, comme ils faisaient leur travail comme ça là. C'est un jeune homme blanc, tu comprends, puis tout, ok, on va le laisser passer là. Et puis comme, encore plus avec les homosexuels, ils veulent même pas avoir de problème avec les homos, ils les laissent tranquilles straight. So, moi c'est ça, mon truc personnel, c'est du white privilege.
Jeffrey Dahmer get away with murder after murder for 13 years. How did a boy born into a hard-working middle-class family turn into the worst kind of monster imaginable? In this exclusive interview, we put those questions to Jeffrey Dahmer himself. We met with him at the maximum security prison where he is serving his sentence of 999 years. For the first time, he talks about his crimes and gives us a chilling look inside the mind of a serial killer.
It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. When you depersonalize another person and view them as just an object for pleasure instead of a living, breathing human being, it seems to make it easier to do things you shouldn't do.
The reason why Jeffrey Dahmer was able to get away with his crimes was because of just what you are seeing here. Jeffrey Dahmer is intelligent and articulate. That is what makes him so frightening. But if you listen carefully to his words throughout this interview, you realize it is a thin disguise.
So, tu vois, juste parce que tu es intelligent, puis que tu apprends comme t'as pas l'air d'un criminel, comme dans ce temps-là, il laissait les choses passer. Puis même jusqu'à maintenant, je suis sûr que c'est un petit peu comme ça, là, tu comprends? Je vais pas pointer du doigt à personne, mais je suis sûr que, depuis que tu parais bien, et puis que comme tu sais comment placer tes mots, là, tu peux te sortir de beaucoup de situations, même si t'es un gros piece of shit, man. Puis yo, tu comprends? C'est juste comment que le système marche, tu comprends? Le système marche sur la première impression. Puis c'est ça qui est ça.
You do sound, though, like the kind of person who could have said to himself, "This is wrong. I must stop."
I always knew that it was wrong, but after the first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance over him.
The hitchhiker's name was Stephen Hicks. He was just 18. Jeffrey Dahmer took him to his parents' house. There he strangled him with a barbell. He dismembered the body and hid it in a drain pipe. It was Jeffrey Dahmer who gave those...
Yo, il a coupé le corps en morceaux puis l'a mis dans un tuyau d'évacuation, man. Comme, c'est qui pense à faire des affaires comme ça? Genre comme, yo, ce gars-là, là, il devait vraiment être super troublé, là, comme... Shit, man. Comme, tuer quelqu'un, comme, c'est quelque chose. Tu comprends, mais découper le corps, tu comprends, puis faire des affaires sordides avec, là, ça, c'est un autre level, genre.
Details to the police in his confession.
No one had a clue as to what was happening for over a decade.
During that time, Jeffrey Dahmer joined the army and was sent to Germany. He was eventually discharged for a drinking problem and returned to Ohio. 9 years after Stephen Hicks' murder, the killing began again. What happened to you in the 9 years in between that you were able to stop, that you were able to control yourself?
Just wasn't an opportunity to fully express what I wanted to do. There was just not the physical opportunity to do it then. When I moved to Milwaukee in '81, I started reading pornography, going to the bookstores. Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars. And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. Had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory
I
of it?
have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
Dahmer says he snuck the corpse of his victim, Stephen Toomey, out of his hotel room in a suitcase. Then he took it to his grandmother's house, where he cut up the body and put it in plastic garbage bags. When you killed these men, afterwards, were you repulsed? Were you upset?
No, at the time, it was almost addictive. It was almost...
Yo, y a aucun remords. On aurait dit que yo, c'était addictif, tu comprends, dans ce temps-là, là, comme il aimait ça, là, c'était une addiction de tuer du monde. Il a mis un gars dans un fucking mallette à bagages, il l'a emmené chez sa grand-mère, il l'a coupé, et puis il l'a mis dans des sacs de poubelle, man. Comme, ce gars-là, là, comme il n'y a rien de normal, là, comme, yo, bro, c'est dur à penser même que ce soit un être humain, man.
A surge of energy. I wouldn't have to worry about any of their needs or anything. I just had complete control of the situation.
But Jeffrey Dahmer was out of control. The urge to kill had overpowered him. As police later learned, he wasn't satisfied with his victim's death. He wanted more. Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep if I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons. And I even went so far as planning on setting up an altar with the 10 different skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose?
Wow, ça c'est des affaires sataniques, ça. Faire un hôtel, tu prends avec les 10 crânes différents, genre, comme... Ça, c'est des affaires-là, collectionneurs sataniques, là, comme... Yo, juste shocking, man. C'est le seul mot que j'ai à dire, man, c'est shocking. That's it.
What's of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial. A point where I could... I don't know. It's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts and feed my obsession.
When the bodies were still in your apartment, there was no time when you would see them and say, "This is grotesque. What have I done?"
There were times, but the compulsive obsession with doing what I was doing overpowered any feelings of revulsion.
This man with a quiet, almost shy demeanor became a master manipulator who was able to lure strangers he met at gay bars to his apartment. He was even able to con the police into returning a 14-year-old boy to him after neighbors called 911 upset that...
Wow. Il a convaincu la police de ramener un jeune homme de 14 ans chez lui parce que comme il y avait des voisins qui avaient vu qu'il y avait une affaire louche et puis comme l'enfant avait réussi à s'enfuir un petit peu. Puis là, ils ont appelé la police. Mais là, quand que le gars il est arrivé, il a dit « Oh, c'est mon chum. Il y a plus que 19 ans, puis tout. Puis ils ont des gays. » Les policiers, ils l'ont cru sur parole. Puis ils les ont juste raccompagnés à la porte de son appart. Et puis ils l'ont laissé tranquille. Tu vois, comme c'est pour ça que tantôt la vidéo, je disais « white privilege ». Tu comprends? Parce que comme ce serait arrivé à un noir ou à une autre ethnicité dans le monde, tu comprends? Ce serait pas passé comme ça. C'est pas juste le fait que tu parles bien là, et puis que comme, yo, tu dis que c'est ton chum gay là. Yo, comme ce gars-là, là, comme, il a l'air de 14 ans, là, il a pas l'air d'avoir 21 ans, là, tu comprends? Puis quelqu'un de 14 ans qui est drogué, tu comprends? Puis qui a l'air d'avoir besoin d'aide, tu comprends? Comme, tu passes pas sur ça, tu comprends? Juste parce que, je sais pas, là, il est là au ciel, là.
That the child was in the street, naked and bleeding. Dahmer convinced the police that he...
Il était nu dans la rue, il saignait. Comme, puis il a réussi à convaincre la police que c'était son chum, man.
And the boy were simply having a lover's quarrel.
It was an intoxicated boyfriend of another boyfriend.
Well, how old was this child?
It wasn't a child, it was an adult.
After the police left, Jeffrey Dahmer murdered that boy, Conorak synthesomphone. This man says he had a near-fatal encounter with Jeffrey Dahmer.
He wanted to take some picture of my back. He hit me with a rubber hammer on my neck.
He was lucky to escape because by then the killing had become almost routine. Before you went out to pick up the man, was there any kind of ritual you went through?
I'd go to the nightclubs, drink, watch the striptease shows, and if I didn't meet anyone at the bars, I'd go to the bath clubs and meet someone there, offer them money, and we'd go back to the apartment, have a few drinks. I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
Watching the movie Exorcist 3 was also part of his ritual. It put him in the mood for murder.
I felt so hopelessly evil and perverted that I actually derived a sort of pleasure from watching that tape.
Did you like feeling evil?
No, I didn't. But I had tried to overcome the thoughts, and it worked for a while, but eventually I gave in.
While Jeffrey Dahmer may say things today that make it seem like he understands what went on in his mind, he does not.
Ben non, il comprend
All
rien,
he can
là.
do is
C'est
tell
sûr,
you
là.
what happened, but he cannot stop whatever it is that drove him to kill in the first place.
Do you still feel those same urges? Do you still feel that compulsion, that obsession?
I wish I could say that it just left completely, but no, there are times when I still do have
Pendant, il a
the
encore
old
envie de
compulsions.
tuer, man.
Jeffrey Dahmer says as time went on, his mind became more and more warped, and yet he was clever enough to continue to elude police and lure young men to his apartment. We should warn you, the details are very graphic.
I started having these obsessive thoughts when I was about 15 and 16, and they got worse and worse.
What were your fantasies about?
They were sexual fantasies of control, power, complete dominance. They became reality.
Was there pleasure in that fantasy?
There was excitement, fear, pleasure, all mixed together.
Jeffrey Dahmer fulfilled his fantasies by murdering and dismembering.
Puis moi, la chose que je comprends pas, c'est que, regardez la couleur de toutes ces victimes là, et savez qu'est-ce qu'ils faisaient là. Je pense que comme il y a un seul américain là de souche là, ou sinon les autres c'est tous des Afro-Américains, puis d'autres minorités visibles là, comme ils savaient qu'est-ce qu'ils faisaient, puis ils étaient au courant du privilège qu'il y avait, comme qu'on n'allait pas l'arrêter parce que il a l'air de rien, genre, tu comprends, comme il a pas l'air de criminel, puis il s'est parlé là, il a fini l'école là, tu comprends. What the fuck, man? 17, man. Sur 17, il y en a un. Il y en a un que, on voit clairement que c'est un caucasien blanc puis qu'il a un nom de famille américain. Parce que même ce gars-là, là, Guerrero, là, ça c'est un nom espagnol, là. Toutes des minorités, là. Ce gars-là, là, c'est limite à penser s'il était raciste ou pas.
17 young men. In time, his desires became more extreme, his deeds more grotesque. Listen to him talk about the most unnatural things in the most matter-of-fact of ways. That's when you realize that none of it has touched him.
I was branching out. That's when the cannibalism started, eating of the heart and the arm muscle.
Yo, cannibalisme, manger leur cœur, genre comme... Yo, non, là, tu veux pas me dire que comme, yo, t'es quelqu'un de saint, là, ça c'est sûr, tu crois au diable, là, ou tu crois à une force maléfique. Manger le cœur d'un être humain, genre. Comme, yo, what the fuck, man.
It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of me. At first it was just curiosity, and then it became compulsive. Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state.
Yo, le gars, il essaie de faire des zombies, man. Il essaie de les mettre dans un état, là, végétatif comme des zombies, là, pour qu'ils restent avec lui, là. Comme, yo, des affaires juste, là, comme, super fou, là. Comme, j'ai déjà vu, comme, des trucs de malade mental, des séries de malade mental, mais ce gars-là, il est super fou, là. C'est comme, c'est le super saiyan des tueurs en série, genre, comme, yo, il est trop malade, comme là, là.
Injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water, and it never did completely work.
Could someone like you be stopped? Could you be helped?
No, I was dead set on going with this compulsion. It was the only thing that gave me any satisfaction.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia chocolate factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
Jeffrey Dahmer exhibited some disturbing behavior early on. He began drinking heavily as a teenager, dropped out of college, was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother.
Do you know what started it? Was there any kind of incident that you can remember?
To this day,
Il a même tué le frère de une des victimes qui a réussi à s'échapper, genre un petit peu plus tard, là, comme...
I don't know what started it. And the person to blame is sitting right across from you. That's the only person. Not parents, not society, not pornography. I mean, those are just excuses.
His macabre 13-year crime spree finally ended when this man, Tracy Edwards, brought the police to the infamous apartment. Like the others, he had gone there with the promise of money.
He was listening to my heart because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point. I hit him and I ran.
What was the turning point for you that made you suddenly realize that you had done something terribly wrong, something you should be sorry for?
It was the night of the arrest. I have no memory of what happened during the 6 hours before the last victim ran out of the apartment. I heard a knock on the door, and the police were there with the last victim. They asked me where the key was to the handcuffs. My mind was in a haze. I sort of pointed to the bedroom, and that's where they found the pictures. And they yelled, "Cuff him." I was handcuffed, and it was just the realization that there was no point in trying to hide my actions anymore. The best route was to help the police identify all the victims and just make a complete confession.
When it was revealed that most of the victims were black or homosexual, people in Milwaukee were incensed. Many felt that was why he went after them and why the police didn't seem to care.
Ben oui, c'est sûr à 100%, à 1 million de pourcents, c'est parce qu'ils étaient noirs de 1, puis de 2 parce qu'ils étaient homosexuels. Mais comme ça se voit là que son modus operandi là, c'est de prendre des noirs là, comme des noirs ou d'autres minorités là, comme c'est écrit dans le ciel là. Si quelqu'un essaie de venir me dire quelque chose comme ça là, bro, je sais pas qu'est-ce que tu manges le matin là qui te fait tourner ton cerveau pour pas comprendre ça là.
Their families reported them missing.
10 of your 17 victims were black. Were they racially motivated?
It was
crimes?
not racially motivated. It was not sexual
Cap.
preference. It was just to
Cap.
find an obsession
Straight
with
cap.
the best-looking young man I could find.
While you just heard him say that his sexual preference had nothing to do with the killings,
No.
he has not come to terms with his homosexuality.
Never understood it. There was no use trying to fight it because I couldn't rid myself of it. It was too powerful and persistent.
Do you dislike it?
Yes, it's caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of conflicts and unanswered questions.
The conflicts remain with him, and so do his compulsions. But in prison, he finally cannot act on his savage desires.
If you were out on the street now, would you still be committing the crimes?
Probably. If this hadn't happened, there's no doubt I probably would be. I can't think of anything that would have stopped me.
Wow, interview de malade mental, man. Je comprends même pas comment l'intervieweur a pu garder son calme en interviewant ce gars-là, man. Comme, il est trop fou, genre, comme, décapiter du monde, amener une tête de personne au work, tu comprends, faire des affaires fuckées, tu comprends, puis pour de vrai, shame sur la police de ce côté-là, parce que voir qu'ils ont pris au moins un bon 10 ans à aller l'attraper, man. C'est comme, c'est fucké, là. Bon, mais sinon, c'est tout pour aujourd'hui. Likez la vidéo si vous avez aimé. Commentez vos commentaires. Puis abonnez-vous au channel pour voir plus de contenu comme ça. Et puis vous pouvez toujours m'envoyer le lien des vidéos que vous voulez que je réagisse dans les commentaires. Sinon sur ce, peace out.